Okay, so our final speaker, you've heard from him all day, is Tom Paper. Tom is the founding partner of Webster Pacific, a consulting firm. He's the president of Lewis, Bolt, and Nutt, and he is the founder of PICSIM, which we are about to see. He studied economics and environmental studies at Williams College and business at the GSB here at Stanford. He's been a map nerd since he was about 12, he says, when him and 4 other campers got lost because his 18-year-old camp counselor couldn't read a map. And Tom knew at that point that he could read it better than the counselor. And that's what got all this started. He has a great presentation lined up on the cartographic history of San Francisco.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So, So before I give my presentation, I'd like to give an update on PICSIM, which is the website that I started about 7 years ago with a mission to help people tell stories with art. And so what is it? Well, originally it was my digital collection of maps and art, but now it's my collection and the collections of others, and it's grown into over 35,000 images, organized into about 700 exhibits. We've helped artists, academics, and authors, teachers, and students. My students, including Chris, have used it for a class I teach at Williams every January. We've got a couple of and here are some of the people for whose collections are on the site. We've got a couple of interesting things happening right now with PICSIM. First, we have a show coming on July 31st at the Chamber of Commerce Gallery Space, downtown San Francisco, where we'll be displaying about 30 maps of San Francisco on their walls. And then at 6 p.m. on that day, Jim Shine and I will be giving a presentation about that. And here's their space downtown if you haven't seen it. They've got a baby screen compared to the ones we've got here. The second thing that we've been developing, we're calling a pixel note. It's a digital version of a piece of art, which gets combined with voice notes from the artist, all of which are accessible by a QR code. You can scan that code and you'll get to one of these. It's a way for the stories about art or maps to live on after an item is hung on a wall. So Miriam, who spoke here, recently sold 5 pieces of art, and with each piece, her client received a label with a QR code to put on their art. Another recent implementation was with ArtSpan, and an exhibit that opened this past Tuesday at Mission Bowling in San Francisco. We collaborated with the artist Mira Kirilova and recorded pixel notes for each of her items. And you can see here people scanning the QR codes and listening to her talk about each piece. Okay. So I want to talk about not the cartographic history of San Francisco. I want to show you my digital collection. Yeah, please go ahead. I encourage you to take a QR code of this and you'll get all the maps you're going to see here on your phone, and you can go ahead or behind. So I want to show you all these digital maps and what I find meaningful about each map. But more than that, I want to inspire you to look further on your own. So I hope to keep you awake in the final minutes of today's conference by bombarding you with maps. I think there's about 50 or so, and I have timed it. I think I will make it. But there are some themes that will come through. So slowly into focus, sand and land or land claims, water and the seawall, roads and rails, earthquake, fire, and fill, lots of myths and a few fun things. And then sadly, there is some racism involved in this. And so this is a little bit of a warning. There's a couple of anti-Chinese racist images I'm going to show you. And I also am going to show you a very lewd map from the 1940s with unclad women. Okay. So there are also some special events that are a part of this, and I think we know what these are, although maybe not the Silver Rush, which was as important or more than the Gold Rush. Of course, the earthquake and fire, the 1915 PPIE, I'll explain what that is later. the Golden Gate and Bay Bridge constructions, and then the GGIE. So with that, I'm going to jump in. Give me a second here. Okay, the history of San Francisco begins with the history of the Americas coming into focus. This 1507 map by Waldseemüller shows a great deal about Europe, but a lot less about North and South America. It's also the first map that ever showed the word America. In 1570, with this map by Ortelius, things come in a bit more into focus. The shape appears roughly correct, including the Baja Peninsula, but myths still abound. Tuchano, Quivara, and Sercuic were all mythical cities, supposedly rich in gold. In 1606, Blau showed a number of accurate names on the west coast of North America, including the Sierra Nevada, Cape Mendocino, and Cape Fortuna, but the mythical Quivira Regnum, Kingdom of Gold, and Anion Regnum persist. Now, in 1622, with a map by Briggs, an idea that had been debated since 1510 took form in a map, and that was California as an island. In 1510, a Spanish romance novel had said that there was an island to the east of the Indies called California, populated by black women, and when Dutch pirates captured a Spanish ship with a map showing California as an island around 1620, it was assumed that the map must be accurate, and thus began 100 years of mapping or geographic fallacy. In 1680, the myth continued despite having numerous accurate names along the western coast of California. And even in 1720, this beautiful map continues the myth despite conclusive evidence to the contrary in 1701. Samuel Dunn published this encyclopedic map in 1787. It all looks very scientific and accurate, but there are some speculations, such as the River of the West, according to some. Now, this was similar to the mythical Sea of the West, or Mer de l'Ouest, shown here. And this is really incredible. I bought this a while ago. Hold on. Pretty amazing. Okay, hold on just a second. Get out of that. In 1786, La Perouse made a crude map of the San Francisco Bay with east on top. And Jim Shine calls this map the map of the 7 rabbits. By 1811, San Francisco Bay has clearly been identified. This map was made famous by the naturalist, polymath, and explorer Alexander von Humboldt. 1833, mapping of San Francisco has become even more accurate. We can see the Mission, the port of Yerba Buena, and the Presidio. This map of 1848 shows the Yerba Buena harbor and the newly formed streets around the harbor, names we all recognize. It also shows ships docked in the harbor. Okay, this map, 1848, by the explorer John Fremont, is famous for a number of reasons. First, it served as a guide for many of the 49ers crossing the country. Also, the Golden Gate is named for the first time. And then secondly, and I believe this is accurate, although I heard something today, maybe this isn't, but months ahead of the discovery at Sutter's Fort, based upon his evidence, not a guess, Fremont labels the area around the American River as El Dorado or Gold Region. And then I would also note to the right on this map, Lake Tahoe is named as Lake Bonpland. And for the who speaks French and can pronounce the name of his of Humboldt's partner, Aimé Bonpland, who was a traveler with Humboldt in his expeditions. So this map, 1849, is a very famous map that ushered in the gold rush. Now, I'm drawn to the San Francisco Bay, where we see Angel and Yerba Buena Islands, but Alcatraz here has the less well-known name White Island because of how white a rocky island looks after seagulls have done their business. This modern day map helped me see the extent of the gold rush and gold mining in California. 1849, this map by Eddy came after the gold rush and shows the plat plan for the city as well as the planned filling of Yerba Buena Cove. After the gold rush, the need for a railroad to San Francisco was quickly identified and a plan was made to build a rail line from San Jose to San Francisco, and it only took about 13 years to complete. 1852, again by Eddy, the city's developing quickly, but there are issues of competing land claims to be worked out. The claims are acknowledged on the top part of the map, which is oriented to the east. Another problem the city had to deal with was Yerba Buena Cove, which in the early 1850s was still littered with gold rush ships that had been abandoned by their crews. Michael Warner, who has worked as a park ranger, made this engaging map in 2017 of the known locations of ships buried in Yerba Buena Cove. 1853. I love this view of the whole city, and especially the Great Sandbank, part of the wider area that would become known as the Outside Lands. 1857 by the Coast Survey. And so, John, you had talked about this organization. They made maps as exactly as things were at the time. And we're going to see other maps that are plat maps of what they sort of fashioned things would become. Development had happened mostly in what is now downtown San Francisco. And also you can sort of see I've highlighted Mason and Larkin streets. Okay, 1858. The plats and land claims are conflicting and need to be resolved. And the city needs a map to figure it out. And this is what they did. And these are wonderful maps that the Rumsey Center has. And by the way, I should thank the Rumsey Center because at least half of the maps in this collection are from the Rumsey Center. Okay. San Francisco remained a place where navigation mattered, and this map was made for those sailing into and out of the bay. Looking at Alcatraz, Fort Point, and Point Bonita. 1860, the gold rush has calmed down, but now there's a new rush for silver in the area just to the east of what is now Lake Tahoe. In 1860, this lake was called Lake Bigler after John Bigler, who had governed California in the 1850s, but it was renamed Lake Tahoe in the late 19th century after Bigelow had demonstrated Confederate sympathies during the Civil War. 1860, City Land Association were the means by which regular people could buy property in San Francisco as it was growing so rapidly. These were collective organizations formed to acquire, subdivide, and sell their land to members. I love this next map, the 1864 Butler map. It's a great example of the plats, the land claims, the ranchos, and the fill. It's all jumbled up here. It's a really remarkable map. Back to the Coast Survey. We've got 4 in total, I think. 1869 shows how San Francisco remains a city by the bay, not by the ocean. So we're halfway across the city, and development pretty much doesn't exist. One of the most unfortunate aspects of San Francisco's growth was the overt racism against Chinese that manifested itself. This fear-mongering map even came with a rhyming racist poem. They are bringing plague and pestilence in fever-laden ships and taking gold and silver back on their returning trips. They are bringing hordes of prostitutes to ply their trade of shame and breeding vice and foul disease too horrible to name. You can get a feel for what the city was actually like from this 360-degree photo taken by Edward Muybridge. And we were here with the Stanford group not long ago, and David had just bought this map, and it was sitting on the back there. We were all poring over it. It's fascinating. Muybridge was famous for, hold on just a second. So Muybridge was famous for stop motion photography. You may recall this. He also has a statue in Letterman. But what you may not also know, is that he's famous for murdering his wife's boyfriend and getting away with it by arguing that the crime was motivated by defending his Victorian honor. (1885), another map of Chinatown and racism against the Chinese, this time with a map showing places where debauchery occurred in Chinatown, including white prostitution, that's the blue in the upper left, CP is Chinese prostitution, joss houses, which is pejorative for shrines, and opium dens. So we've got an oblique view from 1875 of San Francisco, a bustling city with ships and factories, churches and homes. From 1878 to 1916, a seawall was built from Mission Bay all the way to Fisherman's Wharf. The seawall reclaimed huge amounts of land and allowed the community to prosper. Fast forward to 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake, and faults were uncovered. $5 billion of spending is now needed to shore up this seawall. 1879, people were coming to visit San Francisco and they needed a map, and I just love how this map basically ignores the outside lands and makes it seem like Pacific Ocean abuts downtown. Okay. We go into the back half here. Water, 1899, water was vital to San Francisco, and this map shows the water districts and reservoirs, crucial to the growth of San Francisco. All of this was before Hetch Hetchy. Where you have water and humans, you also have sewage, and this map showed where sewer lines were built or needed to be built. 1903, another coast survey, and you can see actual roads have extended further westward, but much of the Sunset and the Richmond are still undeveloped. 1903, a beautiful map of Golden Gate Park developed by Hall and McLaren. Given the prejudice against the Chinese, I was surprised to see a Japanese village in Golden Gate Park. And what I learned was that the Japanese, with lobbying on their part, had gotten themselves to be viewed by the white establishment as exotic and not dangerous in the same way as the Chinese, although that lobbying did not ultimately help them in the Second World War. 1904, San Francisco is a city on the rise. Gold and silver have propelled the boom, big buildings downtown. And in the west, parks and cemeteries, and further west, the Sutro Baths, the Cliff House, and a railroad to get you there. This is fascinating to me. I did not know this until a while ago. 1905, San Francisco gets Daniel Burnham, the famous architect who directed the 1893 Chicago World Exposition, to plan a revision of the streets of San Francisco along the lines of the L'Enfant in Washington and Haussmann in Paris. But we all know what happened shortly thereafter. April 18th, 1906, tragedy strikes. The earthquake and fire destroy 80% of the city. This dramatic map not only makes you feel like you're right there during the fire, but it also shows you how much bigger this fire is than the recent fires in Chicago and Baltimore. The devastation is epic. You can see here the Fairmont Hotel and the James Flood Mansion, which later became the Pacific Union Club. What's often overlooked about the fire, and what this map shows, is that over 250,000 people were displaced by the 1906 earthquake. That is 3 out of every 4 people. (1906), like a recent pandemic, but more, the earthquake was a fire the earthquake and fire was a complete reset on the lives of San Francisco. More people died on a percentage basis than the Spanish flu or the COVID pandemic. If you look at the people who died, the 3,000 people who died in that earthquake, it was like 1.5% of the population. San Francisco recovered brilliantly. In less than 10 years, San Francisco had been rebuilt and hosted a world exposition hosting the Pan-Pacific Exposition for the Panama Canal. And I'll show you a little picture here. Over 19 million people visited San Francisco during the PPIE. Today, San Francisco gets about 24 million people, so almost as much back then as we get today. One more coast survey. San Francisco was still growing, but this map shows once again that the Sunset is still sandy and not developed. And thanks to my colleague Ann Murphy for this map. Okay, 1928, one of my all-time favorite maps, Harrison Godwin. It's filled with history, really amazing history. It's worth spending some time on this map. I just can't recommend it enough. So it shows Union Square shopping. It continues to joke about the sand dunes in the Sunset. And then Daniel Lurie would love this map because it says that San Francisco is the ideal convention city. 1928, San Francisco had facilitated its growth by offering street railway franchises to private companies. In 1928, it began taking control of transportation and organized it into the municipal railway, or what we know as Muni. And this map shows the expiration dates of the various franchises. And now, in honor of the map in the back there, people love to look in the mirror, at least when they're young. And San Francisco was treated to a look at itself in 1937 by Harrison Riker, who flew over San Francisco and took about 160 photographs, creating an early version of Google Earth. It is a magnificent picture, and of course, there are the sand dunes that I so love. I also love to see and think about how Crissy Field once was an airfield. So San Francisco's next phase of growth came with the construction of the Golden Gate and Bay Bridge. The Golden Gate International Exposition celebrated these two bridges and was held on the newly created island from Phil, that is Treasure Island. The creator of this map was Ruth Taylor White, who is really a rock star in the annals of pictorial map making. In 1940, San Francisco was feeling its oat, and it went too far, taking the city of love and turning it into lewdness and lechery. Milton Shankovsky celebrated pixelated philanderers, oogling naked women, while their fully clothed wives remained in the respectable Sunset. Not our finest moment. In 1947, San Francisco demonstrated its better side when Ken Cathcart made this map of Chinatown, which celebrated real people and businesses. Jim Shine wrote a book about Ken and this map. After Burnham in 1905, San Francisco was not done thinking about what it could do with roads. This dystopian freeway vision was considered in 1948. Thankfully, all of the freeways and a central parking area did not materialize, although a monstrous viaduct, and I think everybody here probably remembers this, did exist in front of the Ferry Building from 1959 to 1991. And my last image is from 1952, a pictorial map by Don Bloodgood. And like Godwin in 1928, it's an optimistic and carefree homage to San Francisco, the city of Herb Caen, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, and the San Francisco Seals baseball team. And so with that, thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. This has been a great day, really fun, and we'll do it again next year. Okay. Thank you.